Growing up, my mom would tell me stories about the most beautiful princesses, their heroes, and their happily ever afters. We are all familiar with the stories, but what if I tell you that Disney didn't tell you the full versions of these stories? Oh, and Mr. Walt also left out some disturbing details. Do you want to know the full versions of your favorite childhood fairy tales? Let's find out. Oh, and I need to warn you, your childhood will be ruined. Cinderella. In the original story, Cinderella is bullied by her stepmother and stepsisters, who make her do all the chores around the house in old, filthy clothes, while they wear the most beautiful dresses and wear the most expensive jewelry. The two stepsisters were also invited, but when Cinderella begged them to allow her to come with them, the stepmother refuses, saying that she didn't even have nice clothes to wear or shoes to wear. Sounds familiar? Well, that's because so far Disney stuck to the original version. But in the original version, Cinderella went to her mother's grave and she cried when she didn't get to go to the party. It was a white bird who dropped a silver and gold dress and silk shoes for Cinderella. She also danced with a prince not one night, but 3 days. Every day showing up in a more beautiful dress and more beautiful shoes. Every night she managed to escape from the prince who had fallen in love with her. On the 3rd night, Cinderella lost track of time and she lost her shoe when she tried to run away. It actually stuck to the floor because the prince ordered his staff to make the floor sticky so Cinderella couldn't escape. The prince found the shoe and stated that he would marry the maiden whose foot will fit into the golden slipper. So far so good? Well, this is where we get to the dark part of the story. The day after the last day of the festival, the prince arrived at Cinderella's house. The older sister tried first to fit her foot into the slipper, but she couldn't get her toes in. So the stepmother advised her to cut off her big toe. Then the second stepsister tried on the golden slipper, but she wasn't able to fit her heel in it. Again, the stepmother advised her to cut off part of her heel to fit the slipper. Again, it worked, but when the prince saw the bloody mess, he knew he was being tricked. Again. Cinderella tried on the slipper and it fit perfectly and the prince knew he found his bride. But the story doesn't end there. During the wedding of Cinderella and the prince, the stepmother and stepsisters were also invited, but got struck in the eyes by 2 doves, leaving them blind for the rest of their lives. The end. Pinocchio. In the original story, Pinocchio ran from home when he learned how to walk, and he caused a lot of trouble. Geppetto chases after him, but gets thrown in jail when a police officer suspects him of abusing Pinocchio. He also falls asleep with his legs on the stove, burning off his feet. Geppetto got released from jail and makes him a new pair of feet. Along his journey, Pinocchio also meets a cat and a fox, who try to scam him and later ambush him. Pinocchio manages to escape by biting off the cat's paw. Pinocchio then runs to a White House, where he is greeted with a young fairy with turquoise hair, who says she's dead and waiting for her heirs. Yes, the fairy in Pinocchio is actually a walking corpse. You're welcome. When Pinocchio is talking to the fairy, the cat and the fox catch him and hang him in a tree, wait for him to suffocate. But since puppets have a hard time suffocating, the cat and the fox leave and Pinocchio eventually escapes. After causing even more trouble, Pinocchio eventually turns into a donkey and he's sold to a circus. After injuring his leg, the ringmaster sells Pinocchio to a man who wants to skin him and make a drum out of his skin. He throws Pinocchio into the sea to drown, but when he returns to pick up the corpse, he found a puppet. Pinocchio explains that the fish ate his skin and meat and that he's now a puppet again. Pinocchio then dives back into the sea where he is eaten by the great whale. He finds Geppetto in his stomach, who was also eaten by the whale when he was trying to search for Pinocchio. When they return home, they are welcomed by Jimmy the Cricket, and Pinocchio actually gets a job doing work for a local farmer. After a couple of months, Pinocchio discovered that the fairy is very ill and that she needed money. He gave her all the money he saved to buy himself a new suit, and that night he dreamed that the fairy visited him and kissed him. When he woke up, he discovered that he turned into a real boy. Still a happy ending after all. Snow White. Just like Cinderella, this story starts off as we all know it. The queen died shortly after Snow White was born, and the king remarries to Snow White's evil stepmother, who has a magic mirror. She asked it the same question every day. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? And the mirror always replies with, My queen, you are the fairest one of all. Until one day, when Snow White had grown up, and the mirror replied with, My queen, you are the fairest here, so true. Snow White is 1,000 times more beautiful than you. And that's the moment you got dissed by a mirror. The queen is furious and hires a huntsman to kill Snow White. She orders him to bring back her lungs and liver, detail, to prove that she is actually dead. The huntsman takes Snow White to the forest, but finds himself unable to kill her. He sends Snow White into the forest and returns to the queen with the organs of an animal. While wandering in the forest, Snow White finds the house of the 7 dwarfs and she falls asleep in one of the tiny beds. When the dwarfs return home and find her, she explains herself and they allow her to stay in exchange for housekeeping. Meanwhile, the queen asks the mirror again, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? To which the mirror replies, My queen, you are the fairest here, so true. But Snow White, beyond the mountains and the 7 dwarfs, is 1,000 times more beautiful than you. Then the queen decides to kill Snow White herself. Now here comes the dark part that was not included in the Disney movies, for obvious reasons. The queen tried to kill Snow White not once, but 3 times. The first time the queen disguised herself as an old peddler, and offered Snow White a colorful silky corset and tied her up so tight that she fainted. The queen leaves, but Snow White wakes up when the dwarfs loosen the leash. The second time the queen tried to kill Snow White with a poisoned comb. When Snow White brushes her hair with a comb, she faints, but regains consciousness when the dwarfs remove the comb from her hair. The third time, the queen creates the famous poison apple and gives it to Snow White. She takes a bite, but a piece got stuck in her throat, what causes her to faint. Man, the girl faints a lot. The dwarfs are unable to wake her up and, assuming she's dead, place her in a glass coffin. Then a prince came by and he asked the dwarfs if he can have the glass coffin because he had fallen in love with Snow White's lifeless body. Yes, even Disney stories are not able to avoid freaks like that. But when they were about to leave, his people dropped the coffin and the piece stuck in Snow White's throat dislocated, which resulted in her waking up. Wedding plans were made and even the evil queen was invited. But when she arrived, she was forced to wear iron shoes that were placed in the fire, and she was forced to wear iron shoes that were placed in the fire, and they made her dance until she dropped dead. The Fox and the Hound. This story isn't exactly known as the most happy Disney story, but believe me, it can get much worse. The Disney version tells the story of the fox Todd, who was raised by humans until adulthood, and a dog called Copper, who was the loyal sidekick of a local hunter. Todd and Copper were best friends, but grew up to be enemies under the pressure of their owners. But in the end, Todd saves Copper from a bear, and Copper protects Todd when the hunter wants to shoot him. They live a happy life, but separated from each other. So now to the original version of this story. In the original version, Copper has to compete with a new and younger pet member called Chief over the spot of his owner's favorite dog. Meanwhile, Todd is raised by a local hunter who killed his mother and siblings, but he escapes into the forest where he grew up into adulthood. One day, Todd runs into Chief. He breaks free from his chain and he chases after Todd. Todd flees along a railroad track where a train is approaching. He jumps to the other side safely in the last minute, knowing that Chief will follow him blindly. Chief gets hit by the train and he dies. The hunter is so upset that he learns Copper to ignore all other foxes and only hunt for Todd. And they spend years chasing him down. Over the years, the city gets more urbanized and most of the wildlife left. But Todd stays and even survives a mass hunting to stop rabies from spreading amongst foxes. Todd now is aged and left tired. One day, when the hunter and Copper were again hunting for Todd, Copper picked up on his smell, and he chased after him. He chased him throughout the day, throughout the night, and into the next morning, when Todd eventually drops dead from exhaustion. Copper collapsed on Todd, close to death himself, but the hunter nurses him back to full health, only to shoot him dead himself a few months later when he moved to a nursery home where dogs were not allowed. Damn, I never thought that story could be any sadder than it already was. The Little Mermaid. In the original story of The Little Mermaid, Ariel does save Prince Eric from drowning, but he believed it was an other girl from a nearby temple and he declares his love to her. Ariel then visits the sea witch and exchanged her tongue, and so her voice, for a poison that gave her legs. But the sea witch warns her. Every step she'll take will feel like stepping on sharp knives. She will never be able to return to the sea, and she has to win the love of the prince before he marries someone else, or she'll die of a broken heart at the dawn of the first day he is married, and she will dissolve into sea foam. Cause that's apparently how mermaids die. Ariel accepts the agreement, goes to the surface and takes her poison. She finds the prince and they dance all night, even though every step Ariel takes causes excruciating pain in her feet. But the prince stated that he could only marry the girl from the temple whom he believed saved his life. Ariel's heart breaks and she prepares herself for her upcoming death. But just before dawn, Ariel's sisters rise from the water and give her a knife that they received from the sea witch in exchange for their beautiful long hair. If Ariel kills the prince and let the blood drip on her feet, she will grow a mermaid tail again and can return to the sea. But she cannot bring herself to kill him, so she throws the knife and herself in the sea at dawn, where she dissolves into sea foam. And so far for our loving childhood memories that we'll never get back. Which fairy tale was the most shocking to you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next. Bye guys!